Today we're going to talk about the various forms of symmetry or lack thereof in maps, and cover a few tricks to help keep your map symmetrical. A symmetrical map means that both sides of the map are the same for both teams. An asymmetrical map means that each side is different. Whether or not a map should be symmetrical or asymmetrical is generally determined by the game mode. For example, maps where one side is defending while the other is attacking are generally always asymmetrical. This includes maps such as Badwater, Gorge, Dust Bowl, Gravel Pit, and Steel. Symmetrical maps are generally found in modes where both teams have the same objective, such as King of the Hill, 5CP, CTF, or Payload Race. The map will have a division down the middle somewhere designating where the two halves meet. Now, symmetrical maps can come in two flavors, mirrored or rotational symmetry. Mirrored symmetry means that when the map reaches its midpoint, it's as if you were looking at the map in a mirror. If there's a cliff on your right side before the point, there will be a cliff on the right side after the point. Mirrored symmetrical maps include Viaduct, Lakeside, Suisun, Pipeline, Hightower, Probed, and Moonshine Event. Rotational symmetry means that instead of copying the map as if it was shown in a mirror when it hits the middle point, everything is then on the opposite side. That cliff that was on the right side before the point is now on the left after the point. Rotationally symmetrical includes Badlands, Granary, Two Fort, Harvest, Double Cross, Gully Wash, and Well, among others. Now, these two types of symmetry both have their pros and cons. Sometimes a layout will just work best with one and not the other, but these are some things to keep in mind when using either type. Mirrored maps tend to be a little easier to create the initial layout of. You just build to the middle and then copy and mirror the whole map over to the other side. Everything will naturally line up. It also gives you a little bit more leeway on the midline for building, such as the side room on Koth Lakeside. Now, a problem you can run into doing mirrored symmetry is that props cannot be mirrored, only rotated. This can lead to some minor or even some major team imbalances on your map, depending on the prop. An example of this is the rocks on Koth Viaduct. They're similar but different in how they are laid out due to the symmetry used. Another not often thought about factor is rocket jumping and peeking around corners. Weapons by default shoot slightly off to the right side of the screen. This means that if the geometry is facing the opposite way for one team, they get a slight cover advantage when they pop out to shoot. This can also throw off how soldiers can rocket jump off the map as well. It's a minor thing, but it's something to consider. Another big issue is confusing players with the layout. Coming out of spawn and heading to the right takes you to the opposite sides depending on what team you're on. Usually this isn't a huge issue, but it can throw players off as they're trying to learn your layout, which is never a good thing. Now, rotationally symmetrical maps have the advantage of the same experience on both sides. When you head out of the right door on the rotationally symmetrical map Badlands, you always end up on the same side at last. They also provide perfect team balance in that the weapon's shooting angle is the same for both teams. Props also rotate into place perfectly, which further solidifies the perfect symmetry this type of map provides. Now, the big issue with this type is that it can be a bit more difficult to create than mirrored maps. You need to plan ahead on how it's going to meet at the middle line, and it doesn't leave much room for error. But now that you understand the gist of symmetry in maps, let me show you a trick I personally use to apply this to my own projects. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people do things differently in Hammer. This is just the method I personally use. For the purposes of this tutorial, I set up a rough outline of half of a small King of the Hill map. Obviously, there'd be a lot more here if it was a proper map, but you get the idea. The first thing I generally start with is placing my control point into the world. I put it at exactly 0, 0, 0 coordinates, which you can see here on the bottom of the screen. Then I build half of my map backwards, culminating in the spawn room. I use any relevant team colors where I can, keeping it pretty simple. Now, here's where the trick comes in. I crank my grid size up to 512 and switch to the skip material. Skip in Hammer doesn't do anything at all on compile, it's completely ignored. This makes it handy for using as a measuring tool or as a way to wrangle a whole bunch of stuff at once and keep it on grid. I draw a skip brush that envelops the entire map in the top-down view. I make the halfway point of the side I want to be our junction go right over where my control point is. Now we want to extend this brush out so it's twice the width of our current half, meaning both midpoints of this brush line up perfectly with the midpoint of our map. Getting this part right is important to keeping things perfectly symmetrical on the other side. It's also very important to make sure this box surrounds everything with nothing sticking out. Now we can select the whole map, including our new skip brush. Go and deselect the control point prop in Logic, as we only need one of these right in the middle. Now we can shift drag our map to one grid over and release. This creates a copy of what we created so far. Drag it back on top of the old geometry. Now this is the point where we get to implement what type of symmetry we're using. I created this layout so it would work in either type. With the new half of the map selected, we can click on it again in the top-down view to bring up the rotation controls. Rotate your map 180 degrees, and now you have a rotationally symmetrical map. But if we'd rather do mirrored symmetry, We can take our copy of the map and hit Ctrl L to flip our selection horizontally, or Ctrl I for vertically on the keyboard, depending on what axis we need. This mirrors the entire half of the map and conveniently puts it exactly where it needs to be because of how we set up our skip brushes. Keep in mind that with a complex map, this process can make Hammer chug a bit. If you have a low-end machine, it could possibly even crash you, so be careful and save often. Now with our new half still selected, we can click on the Replace tool on the side here. Select our old team color dev texture, and set it to replace with a matching opposing team material. Then hit OK. Now if we had a proper map, at this point we'd have to go through and fix any doors or team-specific entities we may have, such as spawn room logic. But that's it, that's all it takes to copy your entire map over, saving you a ton of work. Now I leave this skip brush in for the entire duration of a map's development. This allows every change you make to be easily translated to the opposite side, just like we did to the original copy of the map. Like say I put a prop here. Then I just grab it with the skip brush and do our same symmetrical translations as before. Bam! Prop in place both sides in the exact same spot. For example, in a more developed map, here's my map CP Glassworks. I can delete this prop, place a new one, grab it and the skip brushes I have around the map, copy it, rotate it to the other side, and then fly over and delete the prop I wanted to replace, revealing the new translated prop. This is the method I use for every bit of this map. Using this trick, you can quickly and easily keep your map symmetrical during its entire development.